How's it going, YouTube? How y'all doing out there? My name is Mike the CPA. Welcome back to Money and Life TV, the channel people come to learn about finances, investing, and taxes. In this video, we're going to be talking about Vanguard Sector Fund ETFs. Never made a video around sector funds specifically, but we're going to talk about these today. I think these are 4 great investments to consider for 2019. I'm going to be showing you guys a few other investments as well, just real briefly, and I think it's going to give you a good overview of how the market has done in 2018 and what it might do going forward in 2019. So get ready to pounce on these investments just like a tiger. If you're new to investing and you're not sure what a sector fund is, a sector fund is designed to specifically focus on one particular area of the market. Sector funds specifically focus on one particular sector of the economy or like one industry. So there's a sector fund for healthcare, communications, utilities, etc. Before we dive too deep into the video, I just want to give you guys a few general tips for 2019, or at least things to think about for 2019. As you guys know, if you've been following the market in general has been going down or is pretty flat for 2018, and this is making a lot of people scared to invest. So some other strategies you might consider. You might consider holding some back in cash. You can also look at doing short-term bond ETFs, and I have a whole video on Vanguard short-term bonds. You can also consider looking at the Vanguard Consumer Discretionary ETF, which is VCR. Once again, that's VCR. It's the Vanguard Consumer Discretionary ETF, in addition to the ones we're going to discuss in this video. Now, the first 3 funds are defensive that we're going to discuss. The 4th fund we're talking about in this video is selling at a pretty good discount, but it might continue to fall even further. So I'm not saying really to invest in it right at this moment, but just keep your eye on it. Keep a watch on it and see what happens and see if at some point it makes sense to jump in. Remember, as we cover the performance of these ETFs, past performance does not guarantee future performance. So always keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and continue with the video. Enjoy. With that being said, let's start it up with VDC, the Vanguard Consumer Staples ETF. All right, guys, the date of research on these investments is 12/15 of 2018, and I'm filming this video on 12/16 of 2018. So depending on when I post this, this activity might have changed a little bit, but it shouldn't have changed much. So the beta on this ETF is only 0.31, which means it's not very volatile, which is good, because even in a down market, this thing should hold pretty steady. The yield is you're going to get a nice dividend yield of 2.74%, so not bad. Product summary, I put this in here so you guys can read about what this is, but go ahead and read that in your own time or pause the video. Now, these sector funds, I think all of them that we're going to discuss have been around for 14 years. And of course, just like my other Vanguard videos, the spreadsheet, everything you're looking at on screen with me, you're going to be able to download and take it home for free. There's a link to each investment on each tab in the spreadsheet, as you guys are going to see here. Okay, let's talk about the performance of this investment. So year-to-date return currently is at a meager 1.37%, which you might say that's ridiculous or that's pathetic, but you have to realize the market as a whole has dropped much further in general. So this thing has actually maintained most of its value. So a 1-year return on average currently over a 1-year time span is minus 2.5%. A 3-year is 7.61% return on average. 5-year return, 9.16. 10-year return is 10.36. And since inception, 9.54% per year on average. So that's not bad. So even during an economy crash back in 2008, it still does pretty well. Now let's talk about some of the holdings of this ETF. We have Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Walmart, Philip Morris, the cigarette company, Altria Group, Costco, Walgreens, Mondelez International, Palmolive, etc. So in this ETF, there's a total of 90 different holdings. This is called the Consumer Staples ETF because the companies that it holds are truly consumer staple companies, which basically means that whether the economy is doing well or the economy is doing poorly, this investment is going to have companies within it where people routinely purchase the products. If the economy goes into a recession or we go into a bear market, people aren't going to stop purchasing paper towels and toothpaste. I doubt people are going to stop purchasing Coca-Cola products. Besides, Coca-Cola has a product in virtually every market. So regardless of what you're drinking, you're probably drinking Coca-Cola at some point. Pepsi, people go to Walmart. So that's the idea behind this. This is a very defensive sector ETF fund. All right, let's go on to the next one, which has been doing very well. This I think, has been the best performing ETF for Vanguard of the sector funds for 2018. This is VPU. This is the Vanguard Utilities ETF. It offers a 3.12% yield. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. Beta is 0.09. Year-to-date return is 8.89%. So like the market is flat. Like the return of the S&P 500 is basically flat for the year. Well, if this, you would have got a 3% dividend yield and you would have had nearly a 9% growth appreciation on top of that. So not bad. Let's look at the average annual returns for this investment. Over a 1 year time span, a 3.6% return. 3-year time span, 11.78%. 5 years, 11.28%. 10 years, 9.45%. And since inception, almost a 10% rate of return on average over a 14-year time span. Not too bad. Now let's quickly look at some of the holdings of this ETF. Number 1 is Nextra Energy Corp. 2 is Duke Energy Corp, which I own that stock personally. Dominion Energy, Southern Company, Excellion Corp, American Electric Power, Sempra Energy, Public Service Enterprise Group, Excel Energy, and PG&E Corp. The thing to understand about these rankings here is that the higher the ranking, that means more of the capital within this ETF is pushed towards these top funds and less capital is invested in these other ones. Now, how many holdings does it have? It has, in this sector fund, has 71 utility companies in total within this ETF. What's great is that you're gonna get the average return of all the utility companies that this thing's invested in, which is really useful. So you don't have to spend all your time trying to figure out, oh my gosh, there's like 100, 200 utility companies. Which one do I pick? It's not going to be an issue here. Moving on to the healthcare sector. Let's see if we can get some healthy ETFs in our portfolio. VHT, this is the Vanguard Healthcare ETF. Not much of a dividend yield, less than 1%, coming in at 0.78%. I should mention, guys, before I forget, the fees on these things, the expense ratios are very low. We're talking about 0.1%. It's really nothing to talk about. It's chump change. Beta is 1, so which means this one's a little bit more volatile than the last two we just looked at. Year-to-date return, it's still not doing too bad relative to the rest of the market. I've got about a 6% year-to-date return. Let's talk about performance now, going over here to average annual returns. We have a 1-year return of 6.2%. 3-year return is 15.3%, 5-year 15.76%, 10-year is 14.76%. Since inception, you're getting an over 10% rate of return. Apparently, people need healthcare, and even in a bad market, even in a recession or an economy that's doing poorly, guess what? It doesn't matter. Our healthcare needs, they don't care what the market's doing. We need healthcare services, and so this is another defensive ETF, and you've probably noticed that VDC, the Consumer Staples one, the VPU, the Utilities, and VHT, these are all considered defensive because the reason I'm choosing these ones, guys, is because I really believe within the next 2 years, our economy is going to continue to decline. There could be a recession if the Fed keeps raising interest rates. If trade war tensions are still going on, which I don't see them going away just yet, we could find ourselves finally in a recession in the next few years. But we'll see. I don't know for sure, but those are just my thoughts. So let me know your thoughts on that. All right, the 10 largest holdings within this ETF, and it owns 300 different healthcare companies within this ETF, which is pretty incredible. Okay, so number 1 is Johnson & Johnson. Pfizer's number 2, and by the way, I own both of these personally. United Healthcare Group, Merck, Amgen, Medtronic, Abbott Laboratories, AbbVie, Eli Lilly and Company, Thermo Fisher Scientific Inc. I really like the investments that are held within this ETF, the companies that make this thing up. So definitely have an investment to consider for your portfolio in 2019 if you want to invest more in the healthcare sector. Now we're on to the 4th and final one, and then we're going to do a quick overview of all the different funds, including the sector funds as well. So I have a special treat for you guys towards the end of the video, so stay tuned. All right, the Vanguard Communication Services ETF, which is known as VOX. Yield is 3.55%. Beta is 0.48. Year-to-date return is negative 3%. Looking at performance, the average return, so for 1 year, it's lost about 2.3%. 3-year average returns is minus 6.64%. 5-year, 5.39%, and 10 years is 8.63%, and since inception, about 7% per year. Okay, so the reason I'm looking at this one, guys, is not because I'm saying this might be the greatest investment in the world, but it's the communications sector has been hit pretty hard. And so if you're looking for value, if you're a value investor, take a look at Vox. It has some very high-paying dividend companies within it, and you might get some appreciation along the way, and you're getting some nice discounts at this point if you're looking from a value perspective type of investment. This is one to consider. And the other thing about this, another reason I really wanted to point this one out, guys, is because so on the NASDAQ has re-indexed some of the investments. So investments that were once in a different sector are now have been moved over to the communications sector. So some big company changes have happened within this. And so now we have companies within the communication sector like Alphabet, Facebook, AT&T. Well, AT&T's pretty much always been there. Comcast, Verizon's always been there. Walt Disney, though, Netflix. Netflix did not used to be here. Facebook did not used to be here. Alphabet, which is Google, did not used to be here. So I really wanted to point that out. Activision Blizzard, which I am not a fan of Blizzard right now, but it's in there. It's in there. A value investment to consider if you're looking to buy something at a discount is the Vox, the Communications Sector ETF. On the stock holding tab, I've included the top 30 stock holdings that across these 4 ETFs. You can look at them in your own time. As you can tell, there's no crossover here because they're all specifically focused towards one industry or one sector because they're sector ETFs like we talked about earlier. On the comparison tab, what you'll find is all 4 of these investments we just discussed ran against each other. The best year-to-date performer is VPU, followed by VHT. But in the long run, if you're looking at the overall history over the last 14 years, the healthcare sector ETF or Vanguard VHT has been the winner. You can find the yield information over here, right in this area. The highest yields coming from the communication sector, which I'm not surprised, then followed by utilities, then followed by the VDC. So you're not going to get much of a dividend yield. If you want dividends on VHT, you're going to get them from Vox and VPU. Here we have the graphs, guys, where you can compare these things against each other visually if you're a visual person like I am. The black line on each graph is the S&P 500 or the SPY ETF. This is each colored line represents the same color as the tab of the investments is associated with. So blue is VDC, red is VPU, and so on and so forth. So you guys can study these graphs for yourself when you download the spreadsheet. It's pretty cool how they've done. And what you'll notice and what these graphs really point out is that because these investments are defensive, the red, the blue, and the purple, they don't go as down in value as much as the S&P 500. They hold their value. So that's why I really wanted to take a moment to point this out to you guys. That even when the market's doing poorly, these investments, the ones that are defensive, hold their weight. So I really wanted to point that out, and that's kind of an educational point if you're new to investing, is defensive ETFs like this, things that people are going to need to buy, regardless of whatever's going on in our economy, are going to usually continue to hold their value. So what you'll see from the graph is that materials have fallen the most year to date, followed by, and then also industrials have fallen a lot. And I think a part of this is because the economy is starting to slow down, and also we got these trade wars going on and the tariffs with China and things like that, I think are pulling this down. So I'm going to make another video that talks about some of these other funds more in detail, but I just wanted to give you a bird's eye view of all these sector funds on Vanguard, and you can see just based on this information what's been doing well over 2018 and what has not. And also you might be able to infer from this information what sectors might do well in 2019. And the point of this is really to not say, well, I want you just to invest everything in sector ETFs. That's not the point at all. But the point of this is know that sector funds are available for you if you don't want to become an expert on a particular sector of the market. And it might give you some insight to know what stocks and what companies or industries might be doing well in 2019 if the economy continues doing what it's doing or what it has been doing in 2018 over the next few years. It's going to give you some insight of what companies might do well versus what might do poorly. So let me know in the comments section which of these 4 investments you might consider for your portfolio of the ones we discussed today. Let me know why or why not you think it's good or bad, or what other investments you might be looking at going forward for 2019 and 2020. That part of the great thing about this community is we can share our ideas in the comment section, and I love reading your guys' comments, so I always appreciate it when you leave one. With that being said, guys, if you liked the video, do me a big favor and hit the like button down below. Share this information with a friend, especially a friend who's into investing. If you're not already subscribed to Money in Life TV, well, welcome. On this channel, our goal is to help you become fiscally fit. And we do that by teaching finances, investing, taxes, and more on a regular basis. So to join our community and not miss any of our future uploads, just make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, everybody. Have a great week. Stay chill, and I'll see you in the next episode. But until then, take this information and use it to live your life uncaged. Bye, guys. Peace.